You have a content plan mapped out. You know what kinds of emails you want to send and what blogs to write, but currently all it's doing is collecting dust. In this episode, I'm sharing practical tips to help you turn your content plan into action so you can move your business forward.
Being an online business owner is full of ups and downs. Some days you can't imagine going back to your 9 to 5, and other days you want to burn your whole business to the ground. We get it.
Welcome to Chaos to Conversions, a podcast of practical, no BS strategies to grow your online business. Each week, we're chatting about launching, copywriting, mindset, and more, so you can make sense of the chaos and do more of what works.
Join the conversation and let's grow together.
Welcome back to Chaos to Conversions. Today we're talking about a really common problem, which is you have created some sort of content plan for your business, right? Last time I ran the email roadmap challenge, this came up a lot, where first we tackled a big problem people had, which is creating a strategic plan for their content. And they're like, great, amazing. But then for a lot of people, turning that plan into action proved to be just another challenge. And here's the thing. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you're bad at marketing. You're just a human balancing a lot of different things. And you can probably think of a lot more interesting tasks that need to get done than writing emails or blog posts. I totally get that. Or maybe as the week goes on, you had really great intentions of sitting down to write things, and then, life gets in the way, and there are just other priorities and urgencies and things like that. So I want to share 3 simple strategies to help you take action, because the reality is your marketing is only as good as the strategy and the implementation that you put behind it. So let's talk about how you can make that implementation a bit easier for yourself. So the first strategy I have is shrinking the plan. One of the big problems with follow through is overestimating your capacity. A few years back, I used to do like full 90-day content plans for other business owners. That was like a service that I offered. I would sit down and map out all of their content for the 90 days. I would create outlines and do SEO research. It was a huge deal. I haven't done one of those in a while. If you're interested, let me know. Maybe I'll bring it back. But yeah, one of the things that I noticed a lot whenever I was doing these is I would ask people, what is your capacity? And I would say to them, be honest. Don't say, oh yeah, I can write 2 emails a week and publish a 1 blog a week if you've never done that, or if you're currently swamped just writing 1 blog a month. And inevitably, there would always be someone who would overestimate their capacity. And I would check back in with them, at the end of a month and be like, how did the content plan go? And they'd be like, it was amazing. Loved the plan, but I just couldn't do it all. I just didn't have the capacity to do it. And again, the plan is only going to be as good as, yes, the strategy, which that's the first part, you have the plan, but the implementation. So really start by making sure that the content plan that you create is realistic to your capacity. Another way that you can shrink things down is by making the task that you need to accomplish smaller. So instead of sitting down to write a whole month's worth of emails at one time, maybe you sit down to write just 1 email or 1 Instagram caption. And in another episode, I talk about batching. I'd have to look up specifically what episode number it is. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you are struggling with the batching part of things, that kind of shrinking down the task, that would be a good episode to refer back to. So go ahead and look in the show notes for information about that one. Another strategy is to build in accountability. It's a lot easier to stay motivated when you're not doing things alone. When you know someone is going to be checking in or waiting on your work to get turned in, you're going to have to find the time, right? So for example, I have a VA that's been helping me during my maternity leave, and I knew if I didn't have my emails ready by, X date, then the emails aren't going to get sent because I am not going to be in the mood to sit down and write this probably last minute while I'm feeding a baby, and she's going to need it by a certain time. So I only have so much time to get this done. So even if I wasn't really in the mood, I kind of just forced myself to find the time to write them, knowing I'd be better off once it's done. And I just went with the whole writing an imperfect email is better than not having an email. And most of the time I would sit down thinking, oh, this email is going to be crap. It's going to be really bad. And I'd reread it, the next day. I typically cannot edit things the same day. So I'd reread it the next day to do a little editing, and I'd be like, oh, this is great. I don't know why I was so harsh on myself thinking that I wouldn't be able to knock these out. Now it's done. Now it can be scheduled. You can also invest in a community to keep you motivated. So inside the Copy Huddle, my copy support membership, you can request a weekly accountability check-in where I'll actually pop in and say, hey, how are you doing on that task that you said that you were going to do this week? Of course, you can also, you have the weekly audits inside of the Copy Huddle as well. So there's that kind of time sensitive deadline as well. Members have to submit their copy by Wednesday at midnight. So knowing that they have to have copy ready by that time is another piece of accountability. It's kind of that urgency that hopefully gets them to write the copy. Lastly, a business friend can be really great at helping you stay accountable and motivated. This can be informal. Maybe you guys check in every Friday and share something that you worked on or what you still have left to do. It doesn't have to be this formal check-in unless you want it to be. The last strategy I want to talk about is making it easy to start. So something that can be really demotivating about turning your content plan into, actual content is all the things that you have to do to get ready. So it can feel like a really big monumental task. For example, I knew that I needed to record this podcast episode before I went out on maternity leave, but I'm not going to lie, I just really didn't want to write the outline. And it legitimately took me weeks to sit down and type out the notes on exactly what I wanted to say, which therefore led me to recording this way later, like weeks later, than I had originally anticipated. If I'd been more strategic about it, I would have broken down the task into much smaller steps, kind of what we talked about in strategy number 1, which would have made it easier for me to sit down and record this because it would have felt a lot easier to record knowing that I'm not having to do the outline and the recording and everything all in one day. Again, that just feels like a way overwhelming task for me. So maybe have an easy start is something that will help you write your content. So for example, maybe jotting down story ideas for your emails before you actually sit down to write them is a really easy way to get started. Or maybe having a really clean workspace or having a quiet environment. Figure out what an easy start for you is. Like, what is the barrier that normally prevents you from wanting to get started on something? What makes things feel slower or more monotonous? And how can you, again, break down that task or create an easier entry point to that task? So to recap what we've talked about, we often, as business owners, will come up with a plan for something, but then actually implementing it can be really hard. This is something that I have found, and I've worked with a lot of business owners and helped them create content plans. So a couple strategies that you can try. First is shrinking down the plan or shrinking down the task so that it's a lot easier to complete them, right? You're not feeling like you're stepping into this huge task. You can build in accountability, whether it be a friend or a VA or joining the Copy Huddle. And then you can, of course, find ways to have an easier start. What are the barriers that are often preventing you from actually sitting down and writing your copy? And how can you remove those barriers or at least make them easier to overcome? If you've got a plan, but you're struggling to actually hit send or post, the Copy Huddle was built for you. You'll get weekly feedback, ongoing accountability, and a place to bring your copy. So it's not just living in your drafts. It's a lot easier to follow through when you've got someone in your corner, and that person is me. So head to the show notes for more information about the Copy Huddle, including how you can save $50 on your first month or a quarter.
Thanks so much for joining the conversation today. If you want to learn more about how we can work together on email marketing, launch copy, or content planning, head to therelevantcollective.com. I'll meet you back here next Tuesday for more practical strategies to take your business from chaos to conversions.